Hello and welcome in to the CHGO White Sox post-game. Goodness gracious. 3, 2, 1. The CHGO White Sox podcast. You're joining us live from our West Loose studios right here. My name is Herb Lawrence. You've been missing me the last couple days. I've been in Vegas, but I'm back. Ecknerwell23 is where you can follow me. The guy to my left is Vinnie Duber. He is the CHGO White Sox beat writer. Follow Vinnie at Vinnie Duber. And we're being produced today by Katie Duffy. I don't know where you can follow her, but if Katie wants to put that, she can put it. Otherwise, just go to Twitter and look for people. But as you see, we are in the missing Sean Anderson formation. He is the CHGO White Sox host usually. He'll be doing this spiel usually, but he'll be joining us hopefully by tomorrow. He's on assignment right now. But today, our show is mainly going to be focused on the greatest time in White Sox history, the 2005 World Series winning White Sox. And today, October 22nd, 19 years ago, was the start of that great series. And who better to bring in than ALLCITY's Regional Content Director? It is Kevin Kaduk, who is a lifelong Chicago White Sox fan and who was at one of those home games that the White Sox played. I think game 2, but we're going to be starting off with game 1. And Kevin, the thing I want to start off with talking with you about is, I know in hindsight, you look at the Astros and you're like, those guys, the White Sox smoked them 4-0. But looking at that roster now in hindsight, where Rory Oswalt, I think he was like 4th in NL Cy Young, possibly Hall of Famer in the future if he ever gets the steroid allegations over him. Roger Clemens, same thing with Andy Pettitte. I think they were both top 5 in Cy Young. And then Brandon Bakke, out of all of them, pitched the best. And then you got Hall of Famers like Craig Biggio, Jeff Bagwell, Morgan Ensberg, who had a great year that year, etc. I look back,
Hall of Famer Morgan Ensberg.
Hall of Famer Morgan Ensberg at his house. He's the Hall of Famer. What do you think going into that series with the White Sox after White Sox had dispersed of the Angels and you saw that Houston Astros team come out of that Cardinal series in the NLCS? What were your thoughts about the World Series in 2005 before it started?
Yeah, you also forgot Brad Lidge, too, who didn't have a great postseason that year, but then had a great postseason for the Phillies. It's probably not a Hall of Famer, but Hall of Very Good. Great question, Herb. I had access to a strip of tickets for the entire series, and I had a good friend that was getting married down in Kansas City on the night of Game 1. And I thought, well, that's fine. I'll go to Games 2, 6, and 7. And I flew back for Game 2, and I thought I was fine missing Game 1. And, I was. They won the game, and they swept the series, and it was fun. But only got one World Series game out of it, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. That's the only postseason where the White Sox have ever won multiple series, right? And for them to just kind of blow through that in the way they did and go 11-1 is just really crazy to think about. And when you do look back at it, and Roger Clemens starting Game 1 and them ultimately chasing him from that game, and it's crazy that it ever happened. And I think that White Sox fans are lucky that it happened. I know that you're of the belief that, it kind of actually did set them up for failure for the next 2 decades. And I see your point there, but you know what, I'm glad that we got that one.
Yeah. Wow, classic White Sox. You have to go negative right away, Kevin. My goodness.
I'm just blending into the furniture here, okay?
My goodness. It's we're going to make White Sox fans smile today. It's the anniversary of the start of the World Series. Everybody come in for a good time, and he can't get the first answer out without saying, and it's now the reason they're terrible.
I mean,
no, that's Herb's whole thing.
It is. I mean, as you're a big-time Simpsons fan, it's the monkey paw. You got what you wanted, Sox fans. It's still, to this day, October 26, 2005, is going to be a top 5 day for me no matter what happens. You know, when I get married and have kids, those will be jumping over the top of them. But right now, this is the greatest day of all time. And yes, I've paid for that subsequently, but I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world, because the enjoyment from a 12-year-old Herb to that 26-year-old that got to enjoy that was unmatched in my lifetime so far. So
you know what the crazy thing is, Herb, we did the top 25 games in Chicago sports history, and
Yep.
you and I were in a room with a few others, and all 4 games in that World Series were on the table for discussing how great they were. I mean, Game 4, which is the clincher, is arguably somehow I have it ranked as the 4th of those 4. But
what's your ranking?
I would say Game 2. And I think that's just kind of influenced by the fact that I was there. Grand Slam in the World Series on the South Side, walk off. That's hard to beat. And then Game 3 with all the storylines there, with how long it went, the Burley relief appearance, Jeff Blum's homer. And so, I guess then you split between Game 1 and Game 4. So then Game 4 is probably third, right? But Game 1 was awesome too. That was one that was probably had the most drama, because it was like, what are they going to do? Did they finally get to the first World Series since 1959, and are they going to lay down? And they stood and took every punch, and then just that was just like a very methodical game. It was a great baseball team. It's the type of game that a 99 win baseball team wins.
I think that the fact that Jermaine Dye hit that home run off of Roger Clemens, I think in the first inning, it kind of relaxed me, because going into that series, listing all those players, I was like, man, great season for the White Sox. They've reached their World Series, but man, it's going to be tough to lose to the Astros. And remember, folks, if you're a youngster that doesn't remember that time, Astros were in the National League. They didn't have the stink on them that they have currently. Kind of was like a Cinderella story. Like, they were not necessarily supposed to beat the Cardinals. The Cardinals were, I think, the better team. And then with that Albert Pujols home run that destroyed Brad Lidge, and then we'll get to Game 2 where Brad Lidge got further destroyed. I thought the Cardinals were a better team, and then when the Astros came through, I was like, that's the matchup I did not want for the White Sox. But that home run by Jermaine Dye in the first game, pretty much knocking Roger Clemens out. I think he had a mysterious illness or injury after the first inning. He's like, I'm ghost, I'm leaving. That pretty much set the table. He scored the first run and drove in the last run of the series. So, yeah, I would say your rankings of 2, 3, 4, and then 1 would be right. But all those games were competitive, even though the White Sox did take all 4 of them. I want to go to Game 2. You said you were at Game 2. That's one of the biggest regrets I have. I was just a fledgling producer at the Score, so I didn't have money like that. But now looking back, I think it was only $100 to sit up in the upper deck, and so I'm kicking myself for that. But Game 2 turned out to be such an epic thing. I want to ask you just a specific question. It's a Sophie's choice. Not really a Sophie's choice, but it's a hard one to go through.
It's Herb's choice.
Exactly. Which home run do you think was more important, or which one did you like more? The grand slam by Paul Konerko or the walk-off home run by Scott Podsednik?
Konerko 110%.
Okay.
Grand Slam, World Series, the theater that was at that point, arguably the Sox best player. You just don't really get moments like that. And just like, it was 19 years ago tomorrow, and I can still remember what it was like in Comiskey Park. I was up along the right field line, not great seats, not bad. It does pay to have friends in the Writers Association, which is how I got those strips. Just remembering it, the first pitch, and just knowing that as soon as it left the bat, sometimes you're sitting there in the upper deck and you can kind of get fooled by the angle or whatever. And that was not the case. Like, you knew that thing was going in left field, and that place just lifted off. I just still remember like how dark the night was, how cold it was. Like, if you're a certain age, you remember the Bears played the Ravens earlier in the day and won. And I think there was actually even a weather stoppage at Soldier Field, and then the game was delayed. Game 2 was delayed for a little bit, and you thought, are they going to get this in? And then when it finally got on, it was just like, man, you just felt like 35th and Shields was the center of the universe, and it was. And that was just something that was really hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine now. It was super hard to imagine then because, you know, I'm the same age as you, Herb, like first 26, 27 years of our lives, the World Series doesn't come to Chicago, you know? And I think about the game one. One of my favorite pictures of that entire thing is just Jose Contreras delivering the first pitch of that entire series. And you just see the entire stadium lit up and everyone standing and that place packed. And it almost still gives you goosebumps today.
Definitely when you bring up when you say you picked the Konerko home run, I mean, that's the first thing that pops in my head is the reaction, the crowd reaction. I mean, you see it on every time that's replayed to this day, the place goes up for grabs. And I mean, we've all been in stadiums where that happens, you know, during the regular season or even in if we've been lucky enough to be there in a playoff moment. And it's something that you cannot even get through the TV. 30, 40,000 people all going crazy at the same time. I mean, if you've been at a walk-off home run at Wrigley Field, or you've been at, you know, like I was when Leury Garcia hit that home run in the Sox playoff game. Certainly you were there during Game 2 of the World Series, which is all the more added to that. When a stadium does that, it's unlike anything else. And there's a reason that it's lodged in your brain and probably every brain on the south side of Chicago.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. I mean, I was lucky enough to be. I know this is a White Sox show, obviously, but the two Chicago moments that I've been at that rivaled that were when Kerry Wood hit the home run in Game 7 of 2003 on ALLCS. That was probably just as crazy. And then when Patrick Kane scored the second goal in Game 6 of the 2015 Stanley Cup, same sort of deal, but. No matter, like, you know, like you just sit there and watch other teams have it. And, you know, I covered the national baseball beat for a while, and I was at, in St. Louis when David Freese hit that triple over Nelson Cruz's head in 2011. Same sort of deal. It's just like those things. Just when you're watching it, and I was lucky enough to be there with my dad and my brother, and just knowing that for the rest of my life, I'm going to remember that I was here with my dad and my brother when the White Sox hit a grand slam in the freaking World Series. Like, and honestly, there's literally part of me that thinks like I don't really need to see anything ever from the White Sox ever again. And that might be unpopular, but like, how does it get better than that?
I hear you, Kevin. I don't know. I have not found anything sports wise, not even close to comparing to that World Series. And I think the 11-1 was kind of good for us. We hadn't stressed much at all. Like that one loss to Paul Bird in the ALCS, and then Game 2 of the ALCS, you get the AJ play where I think that ball was caught by the catcher. Josh Paul, a local product. But then you get the walk-off by Creedy there. I want to go back to Game 2 that you were at. There was an AJ type play in Game 2 of the World Series that I think goes like largely. Yeah, the Jermaine die. Like him acting like he got hit in the forearm. Instead, he got the bat hit the ball and going to first base right in front of that Paul Konerko grand slam there. So that also goes unsaid, and I think kind of plays to how great that he played in that World Series. Like, I know people say that other players should have got that MVP, but I think Jermaine Dye scoring all those runs and driving in all those runs, and then that heads-up play where if it was happening today, it would be overturned in a second. But Jermaine Dye, that whole series, just a great pickup by Kenny Williams that year where we lost Maglio Ordonez, and we're like, what are we going to do without OEO Maglio? And then Jermaine Dye filled those shoes perfectly.
Yeah. You know, the one thing I just love about that team is just like they were all baseball players, right? And like sometimes that can be code for like the scrappy white guy that's, you know, David Eckstein. But like, you know, the White Sox had players from all, you know, colors, shapes, sizes, whatever, whether it was Jermaine Dye or Juan Uribe or Aaron Rowan. It was just like this collection that like they all found their highest gear when it mattered the most. And it was, you know, it was only a one season thing, and 2006 was pretty good, but they got outkicked in the end by the Twins and the Tigers. But for them to do it in 2005 and Ozzie Guillen leading them, which I think was obviously a really important part of it, It was just like this magical thing. So like, yeah, you have AJ Pierzynski knowing to do what he did in game 2 of the LCS, and then Jermaine Dye, understanding the assignment and getting on base in front of Paul Konerko. It's the same sort of thing, like any means possible. You didn't have everyone trying to put the ball over the fence at every single moment. But then you had Paul Konerko knowing, hey, I know what pitch is coming here from Chad Qualls, and just completely changing the game in one swing.
We'll get back to the conversation about the World Series, because every time you bring up a new thing, I'm like smiling and thinking about that play again. And also we will discuss what we would suggest the White Sox do for the 20th anniversary, which is coming up next season. But first, adventure is calling. Answer it this October by shopping the new low prices during Jeep Adventure Days going on now at Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram. Stop in today and browse their huge inventory of new vehicles, and right now, shop electric savings like 0% financing for 72 months on a new 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee 4xE and Wrangler 4xE models. Or shop 125 vehicles priced under $20,000. Let the amazing team at Ray CDJR help you during each step of your car shopping journey. With Ray's Price Promise, the numbers you're hearing right now are the same prices you can expect to shop in-store or online. That's because Ray's Price Promise means no price changing, no add-ons, and no hidden fees. And since they prioritize affordability for their customers, hurry into Ray CDJR today and shop one of Chicagoland area's largest inventories, then drive home with more money in your pocket than you would expect. So, if you're in the market for a new vehicle, then you have to check out their team at Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram, because they're the only team that we recommend. Visit them today at Route 12 in Fox Lake. For more information, visit Ray CDJR in Fox Lake or raycdjr.com. Serving the community since 1963, and our guy up there, Lynn Holdren. With Empire today, you get shop at home convenience, the right products for your needs, and quick and professional installation, and a low price guarantee. Empire today is the best place to get new flooring, so of course they have copycats, but Empire cannot be beaten on quality, service, speed, so competitors advertise low-quality products that Empire simply won't carry. Empire won't promise the lowest prices, because if anyone does, they're putting floors in your home that they wouldn't put in their own. They keep the shopping for floors simple with a curated product selection. Empire's philosophy is to help you find what you need, not to overwhelm you with thousands of choices and substitutes. What they leave out of your selections is important as what they put in. Empire's product team exhaustively combs through thousands of products samples each year to find the perfect styles for you. Shopping for floors at a big box store can be frustrating. You might talk to someone today who was working in plumbing yesterday. Flooring is all that Empire today does. They live and breathe flooring, so you can be confident that you're getting honest and upfront advice. Schedule a free in-home installation today. All listeners can receive $350 off discount when they use the promo code CHGO. Restrictions apply. See EmpireToday/CHGO for details. You ready?
I'm ready. Here, we're going to see if the broken instrument can make this sound good.
588-2300 Empire today. Oh, look at a little at the end. That was nice.
An echo.
Yeah. We're here talking about the 2005 World Series, and I want to get to Game 3, because the thing is with Game 3, I think it also gets untold, is that you got the home run at the 14th inning, and everybody loves Jeff Blum. But you start the game down 4-0 in the 5th inning versus Roy Oswalt. And at the time, he was the 4th best pitcher in the National League, according to Cy Young that year, with a sub-2 ERA. I thought at the time, down 4-0, hey, we already got 2 games in hand. Houston's tough. We're going to lose this game. But lo and behold, the White Sox score 5 runs in that 5th inning off of Roy Oswalt. And then, it's a wild-ass game. Goes 14 innings. The White Sox eventually win. What out of Game 3 do you take away the most? Is it that? Is it the home run? Or is it something else that the pitcher before in Game 2 might have been showing up in that game?
I think I was like you. It's like, okay, we're up 2-0. They can lose this game. And they were a team that got up early a lot that season. You had Scotty Pods and Tadahito Gucci just really moving things along at the top of the order. So for them to fall in a hole and on the road against a Houston team that was super excited to be in the World Series, they just didn't flinch, and that was super cool. I watched the game at the late and great Full Shilling on
yeah.
Clark, right by, and it was with a large group of people. So I mean, honestly, I think by the end of that, everyone was raring to go, and we had been drinking the entire night. So I do remember that, and Mark Burley coming in was great. I love the fact that Jeff Blum is an Astros announcer now, and no one hates him for that. Like, he's kind of beloved down there. Like, it's one of those only in baseball things. So to me, like, at that point, that was the longest World Series game of all time, and just that they were resilient and really kind of wanted to get it done with. And I remember walking back down Clark Street that night thinking, wow, the White Sox are in a position to win the World Series tomorrow night. And then Game 4, by the way, I watched at another defunct bar. I don't know if anyone remembers the Grizzly Lodge in North Center. This would have been a place completely up Vinnie's alley. Now it's kind of like super yuppified. It was on Lincoln and I don't know, kind of like near Lincoln and Grace, and it was like inside it was all like timber and almost like a Will's Northwoods Inn. But that's where I watched Game 4.
Yeah, it's like weird that the Burley thing. Like, has anybody got confirmation that he was one? I know he was a couple beers deep. Was he drunk during that 14th inning when he came in?
I guess it depends on the ABV on the beer. I guess it depends on what kind of beer it was.
Because he was drinking a decent amount, right? Just like he didn't have to
pitch. It was not uncommon. You were probably in the clubhouses then. It was not uncommon. Like, afterwards, you just went in. I mean, beer was obviously a pretty common sight. A lot of drinkers on that team. So I don't know if he was drunk or not, but when that came out, it didn't surprise me one bit.
Well, and it's funny too, because like nowadays, every starter on the staff has to be on call all the time in a playoff game, World Series game. I mean, think of any of these number of runs where it's like, all right, starters got to come out after 5 outs because nobody trusts them to go anymore. So tomorrow's starter, yesterday's starter, whoever it is, everybody's on call. And back then, 2005, it's not that long ago, but it was totally different game. And the starter coming in is like this legendary thing that happened. Oh my God, can you believe that Mark Burley pitched in relief? Whereas 2 days from now in the World Series, we're going to be seeing 3 starters in one game just because that's how baseball is these days. I mean, you talk about the kind of team that they built, that Kenny Williams built, of guys that weren't trying to hit the home run and everything like that every time up. I mean, I remember watching all these games that when I worked at NBC Sports Chicago during the pandemic, they replayed all of them while baseball was shut down, and I would watch them and write about them. And the biggest, most striking thing is like, wow, no one's walking, no one's striking out. It's just these games are flying because everybody's swinging at everything. 20 years, the game is completely different, and the memories that like seemed so epic then, like, oh my God, Scott Podsednik hit a walk-off home run. Like, it's incredible given the kind of player he was, but like that player doesn't even exist anymore.
No.
If he better be capable of hitting a walk-off home run if you're going to be on a Major League Baseball team these days. But it just goes to show you how those things that we saw as this incredible, crazy, legendary thing that happened are now commonplace.
Well, I mean, you talk about the pitchers throwing all the complete games during that run. Here's the thing about that team. Like, you remember Cliff Polite, you remember Neil Kotz, remember Bobby Jenks. All 3 of those guys had, some pretty good moments.
Career years.
I would have to go to the baseball reference page right now. I don't really remember who else was in that bullpen during the postseason.
Vizcaino. And El Duque.
El Duque was he was in the
he was a starter during the year, but they put him in the bullpen for the playoffs.
I'm trying to
Dustin Hermanson earlier in the year.
Dustin Hermanson, he actually pitched in the World Series.
He came back.
Yeah, he in game. Let's see, this is game 3. Garland started, went 7 innings, which also wouldn't happen, and Burley pitched 7 innings in game 2 and gave up 4 earned runs and You wouldn't see that at all in today's game. To speak to your point, Vinny.
Oh yeah, you put 2 guys on base and you get.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Oh God! Panic! But it was Cliff Polite with the hold, Neil Kotz, Dustin Hermanson, Orlando Hernandez, Luis Vizcaino, Bobby Jenks, Damaso Marte, and of course Mark Burley with the save. So it was like a bunch of people, like nondescript people. Cliff Polite and Neil Kotz had career years and never, ever came close to what they did that year. I think both with sub-2 ERAs that year. And if they were playing today, they would make a lot of money, but I don't think they cashed in on how good they were that year. But, yeah, a lot of things just happened right. I think most people on the White Sox were just above average, and everybody played above average. And somebody's put in there that Carl Everett gets forgetting all the time. Yeah, Carl Everett just did his job. Didn't believe in dinosaurs, but they believed in him, and he got the job done. And it's great. Like it's the weirdest thing about that game, that whole series is like the best pitcher for the Houston Astros turned out to be Brandon Backey, who had a 4 ERA during the regular season, shut the White Sox down for the most part all the way through the game, and then you get the Willie Harris on base at third base with the short and quick Jermaine Dye off of Brad Lidge, I think again, giving up and winning 1-0 to the Houston Astros. And that thing went by so fast. In that game, you have that hit. But in the 9th inning, you got the Uribe catch. If that was made by Derek Jeter, that would be one of the greatest catches of all time. And then the Uribe play to end the World Series, and the White Sox win the World Series for the first time in 88 years.
No slouch on that play either, by the way. That was a hell of a play by Uribe on the game-ending play.
Mercy. So, what would you say is, out of the 4 games, what would you say if you had to exclude the grand slam by Paul Konerko, because that's probably everybody's favorite, single greatest moment of that 4-game series?
Probably the final out. I mean, the Uribe catch into the stands, you're right. If Derek Jeter does make that catch, it's the greatest catch of all time. But the final out, to me, is just probably the best. You end 88 years of frustration, and that was a bang-bang play. I mean, that Astros would have tied the game had it not been made. So I would put that up there. Same with you, or?
I would say I'm trying to think which one would be the best. I would more go to the Jeff Blum home run in the 14th inning in Game 3, just because the game was forever. They had came back from 4-0 deficit. Like, all the things that led up to that made it special, and he was a nothing type of player. Like, I don't remember one regular season moment with Jeff Blum. I recall being pissed at Kenny Williams for not getting anybody real at the trade deadline. And one of the players he got was Jeff Blum. And I was like, terrible. See, that's the stuff that happened in 2005. I know White Sox fans are like, whatever can go wrong goes wrong nowadays. In 2005, whatever can go right went right that year. Every single thing went right. Even when they struggled, they got that Joe Creedy home run off of David Risky and the Cleveland Indians that time, and then said goodbye to the rest of the AL Central. Like, Jeff Blum hitting a home run off a team that he's eventually going to be working for, you can't write that script.
Grady Sizemore making a huge error down in Kansas City, losing the ball in the sun. Did he ever talk about that, by the way, Vinny, when he took over?
Somebody interviewed him about it separately.
That was that same year.
That was not in a scrum, I don't believe, here at home, at least.
Yeah, that was probably the last week, second to last week, and Cleveland was making a push, and he lost a ball. I mean, Grady Sizemore was really, really good that year, and he just made an uncharacteristic mistake, lost the ball in the bright Kansas City sun, and once that happened, I was like, oh, okay, this is and then I think the Ozzie choking thing came after that. When he
so great.
Yeah.
I remember the times where we were cocky. We could talk smack about the Cleveland Indians at the time, now Guardians. Those were the days. But after the break, we will give some suggestions for what we think the White Sox should do for this 20-year anniversary coming up in 2025. But first, let me tell you about the folks at Shady Rays. Get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames, crystal clear optics, making them perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. They have hundreds of options to choose from, so if you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. They probably have a style in your team's favorite color. These are black, like my White Sox. I wear Shady Rays while I'm riding my bike because their optical clarity is vital when I'm biking these Chicago streets. Plus, if your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all eyewear. Every pair is backed by their lost or broken replacements. If you don't love your shades, exchange them for a new pair or return worry-free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back with personal and fast support. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head on over to shadyrays.com and use the code CHGO for 35% off of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people.
Kevin Kaduk on a mission from God, by the way.
Yes, he is.
By the way, I left my Shady Rays in an Indian restaurant in London last week. On the plane on the way back, I put in for, hey, I want my replacements, and today they arrived. So.
Smashing.
It's just not reads, folks. It's real life. Shady Rays lives by their copy. But now we got to go to the folks at Blue Chew. Yeah. They say first impressions are important. What about lasting impressions? That's where Blue Chew comes in. Blue Chew helps boost your confidence in the bedroom so you can stay hard and perform at your very best. Blue Chew is an online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but at a fraction of the cost and in a chewable form. The process is simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription in years. And I know what you're saying. Herb, does it work? Do you think I need it? Try it for free for a month and see for your damn self. You're going to love it. Your partner's going to love it too. And we got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code ALLCITY at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com, promo code ALLCITY. That's ALLCITY to receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast. Oh, yeah. Now to transition from that.
How do we come down off the Barry White ad read?
Yeah, baby. 2025 is coming up next year, and that'll be the 20th anniversary. I cannot believe how fast those years went by. But the White Sox and our friend Melissa Sage Bolenbach have a special Sox Fest coming back this year. I think what they should do just to start off 2025 in the right direction when they start in January of 2025, bring every single one of those players who are available to come back to Sox Fest. You open Sox Fest with them, not the team that's currently going, because you want to start with a good positive pop, as we were talking about. When they hit those home runs, that building could not have been any more louder. You bring back Mark Burley. You bring back Jermaine Dye. You bring back Anthony John Pierzynski, Garland, etc., etc. And Sox Fest, introduce them. I guarantee that's like a nice olive branch. I mean, firstly, they're going to be celebrating that all year long because it's a great time in White Sox history. But I think if you bring them back during Sox Fest will be the kind of the olive branch that White Sox fans need to have to say, okay, this is why I became a White Sox fan. This is why I'm still a White Sox fan, because those 26 gentlemen up there, including Ozzie Guillen. Do you have an idea of what you think the 2025 White Sox should do to honor these gentlemen?
That's a great question. I mean, they are lucky, and I assume that the fact that it's the 20th anniversary played, not an insignificant part in them deciding to have this Sox Fest, at least bringing it back after a few years' absence. We saw the Bulls do that Ring of Honor and kind of botch that. I mean, they need to do a better job than that. I mean, luckily, I don't think Jerry Krause is going to be involved anyhow. I don't see how they could insert Tony La Russa into this at any point. So they've already got that going for them. But yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I would just like to see a lot of programming about it. Anytime that those guys show up in the booth, whether it's Mark Burley or even if AJ Pierzynski is doing his national gig, it's nice to see those guys, and we see a lot of those guys, but it'll be nice to see a Jermaine Dye coming back if he's available, and getting Paul Konerko and basically the entire roster. I don't know like how much you can get back, but it's just going to be such a warm and fuzzy moment, and to me, it's like you really can't botch that. And you're right, Herb. Like when they like don't even have any of the current White Sox players, don't bring out the new manager, bring out the 2005 White Sox.
Well, and not only that, I mean, that's what Sox Fest is for, right? I mean, I understand different years, different priorities exist, right? If they were, coming off of a playoff appearance at some point in the future, or if they were revving up for that kind of thing as they were, the last time we saw Sox Fest, right? That maybe it would be, important to focus on the present or the more immediate future. But every time I've been to one of these things for one of the teams in this city, whether it was when I was a kid or whether I've been working, in this role, it's about the nostalgia. It's about people lining up to get the autograph of the guy that they watched many years back. And listen, I think the only thing that dampens the 20-year celebration of the World Series team in any regard is the fact that it's the 125th year of the franchise in general, and you're probably going to see a little bit more outside of just 2005, right? Some celebrations of, the decades that came before that. And so, again, that'll be a celebratory thing as well for fans who are either at Sox Fest or watching along all season long, getting to see some of the guys who are still around from those teams in the 70s and 80s and 90s and those ones as well. So I think you're going to see a huge focus on the 2005 team, both at Sox Fest and then at some point during the year. Obviously, they've already kind of advertised that they're going to be doing this 125th anniversary thing all year long. At some point, whether it's a special day or a specific homestand or a certain weekend or something like that, everything is going to be dedicated to 05. And I think, you'll probably see another one of those moments where they bring everybody out on the field and try to get everybody all amped up for, a Saturday game or something like that. But I think Melissa is onto something too. What a nice extra boost that would be if Ozzy's number 13 is chosen to be retired this season, kind of as the special thing, to go along with that. Hey, all the guys from the 05 team come back on the field. Oh, and by the way, Ozzie Guillen's numbers going up there is kind of the kicker too. So I think something like that to provide a little extra to, seeing all those guys and folks being able to cheer each individual Cliff Polite and Willie Harris and all that kind of thing. Not to mention the Paul Konerkos and the Mark Burleys of the world to go ahead and add, a celebration for Ozzie to that would be something special.
I love that Ozzie Guillen suggestion. And, like when you asked me that question, I was kind of searching like, what could you do? Because they do already have, the big installment out front of Guaranteed Rate Field. So it's like, okay, you're not going to do that. But to me, like we've talked about this on shows before, of all like the numbers in Chicago that could be retired. And if you, take like the kind of inevitabilities out of there, like Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves or whatever, to me, it's Ozzie Guillen and maybe Andre Dawson. But like Ozzie Guillen to me is the one that deserves to be there, because you really do look at the White Sox haven't been shy about retiring numbers. There's already people from that era who have been retired. Their numbers have been retired. And to me, both as a player and as a manager, he's just as important as anybody that franchise has ever had. So no one should be wearing 13 again. And that would just be a great centerpiece. I'm pretty sure all the people who, all the ex-players who would come in for that would be on board for that. And it would be a really special moment. And you can't screw that up.
Last thing I got for you, and we really appreciate you taking some extra time. I only had you for 2, and you've gone here for 40 minutes now.
Okay.
When Kenny Williams gets introduced at the ballpark and or Sox Fest, more cheers, more boos?
Oh, man. I think it'll be a smattering of boos. I don't think it's going to be anything crazy. If he was still president of the White Sox, absolutely it'd be the other way. But I think people would probably put it behind them. But then again, it's White Sox fans, so I don't know. I'm sure Vinnie knows. I'm sure Vinnie has it.
Kevin trying to save himself from the negativity of his first answer by throwing on the rose-colored glasses here at the end. I don't think anybody involved with this team is getting anything less than a smattering of boos at this point.
Yeah.
Really appreciate Kevin Kaduk's time. You can follow Kevin at his name, Kevin Kaduk. On the Twitter sphere, you're doing ALLCITY Regional Content Director. You're a big shooter now. So we really appreciate you coming in and hope for better days as a White Sox fan for your future.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm glad that I can always step in when Sean is out. I'm glad to do so again in the future. And by the way, check out that Die Hard introductory offer, $48. Gets you all of Vinnie's great reporting and a lot more. So check that out.
Free T-shirt. This box, not this specific one, but a box with a T-shirt, your card in there, a couple stickers. So yeah, it already pays for itself with all the good stuff you get, the 20% off of future merch, all that stuff. So really appreciate you, Kevin Kaduk, joining us today. And just go with the Ozzie Guillen point that you guys were talking about. Like, his number hasn't been reestablished into the numbers after he left in 12. And so obviously they've taken out of circulation for reasons. But the fact that they haven't actually retired it, that would be a great culmination at Sox Fest or some other time during the year to do what they're planning on doing anyways, where Ozzie Guillen has to be not just the only manager the White Sox are alive right now that took the White Sox to the World Series and won it, but he played one of the best shortstops in the American League when he was there, American League Rookie of the Year when he was there. I think he won a couple Gold Gloves. Ozzie Guillen was a pretty good player for the White Sox. So I would say not just him being a manager, but him being a pretty good White Sox player. So that is a long overdue thing for the White Sox to honor Ozzie Guillen. They already have him on both they went from NBC Sports Chicago to CHSN. Ozzie's on both of them. So he's a beloved figure with the White Sox. He's not on the out. So I don't know what's taking so long, but it has to get done this year. As far as this year's team, and I know we got to bring you back down, folks. I've been out of town. I've been in Vegas the last couple of days, so I've been not into White Sox or anything. I've been trying to win and lose money and trying to buy the White Sox. Came a little short in my gambling, but Vinnie's here to catch me up on what's been going down in White Sox land in the last 5 days. I heard some things about them kind of narrowing down their manager search. Like, I know that soon and very soon they will have a manager.
Yeah, as I wrote today, nothing but big, huge stories going on with the White Sox right now, right? It's whether it's Jerry Reinsdorf reportedly talking about selling the team, all the fans are all worried about them moving to Nashville. They're still trying to get a stadium built over here, and of course, they don't have a manager. But yeah, to that point, to the manager search point, they are reportedly narrowing that list down, even though it keeps growing for us because we're hearing about these people for the first time, whether they were considered, been interviewed, still have to be interviewed, that, have varying degrees of specifics on that front. But, yeah, I think the reason we're still here at this time in the calendar with the White Sox not having a manager yet is because the Los Angeles Dodgers are in the World Series. Now, there's a break, as you know, from the end of the LCS round over the weekend to where the World Series beginning later this week. But this gap is probably when they are going to talk to the two guys that they are reported to be interested in from the Dodgers. Clayton McCullough, who's the first base coach, who you do know about.
I do.
And then last week, one of the 4 additional names that we heard as reported by Sox Machine, Danny Lehman, who is the bench coach of the Los Angeles Dodgers. I'm guessing that's what this window is for, and that's why there has not been an announcement yet. But Chris Getz initially said end of October, early November is when he wanted it done. We're running out of October, folks. And, of course, we're only fewer than, I believe, 2 weeks away from the start of the GM meetings, which you'd have to imagine that Chris Getz cannot move on to off-season business without having his manager in place. So I think at some point here in the next 2 weeks, we're going to have an announcement of who that manager is. And probably now that this gap here between the LCS and the World Series is about to be behind us, it could come very quickly, and it's possible that that could come any day. But you figure that the wait was for those two guys specifically.
Hey, those guys are both in a World Series right now, and I'm just kind of not blown away, but kind of like miffed that I'm not hearing enough of Skip Schumacher's name. He's still in the running as maybe possibly the White Sox manager in 2025. Is that your understanding still?
I mean, the only thing we've heard, I believe, in terms of what he's been described as is what Bob Nightingale's been calling him since before Pedro was even fired, which is a top target, right? And so we haven't gotten a lot to leak out of the White Sox manager search, which of course historically is what the White Sox like. But I think that there's a list of pretty much 10 guys, including Grady Sizemore, who obviously Chris Getz informed us about being under consideration, that are candidates in some regard. And so, but the specifics on who's been interviewed, when they were interviewed, where they rank in the thing, that's all kind of mysterious to us right now. And so you're probably not going to find it out because the next thing is going to be for them to announce who is at the top of that list. But in terms of a guy like Schumacher, I think he's always been viewed, at least on the outside, as a very good candidate, but maybe too good of a candidate, right? Maybe somebody who would want to wait around for a higher profile job or a job that would require a little bit less waiting, right? I think anybody that is going to end up with this White Sox job has to be okay with this being a long-term position and this being a long-term project. Chris Getz keeps calling it, using the word partner. He's looking for a partner in this rebuilding process that he's got going on, and I don't think anybody is looking at it as taking any shorter than a few years. So anybody who gets this job is going to be signing up for the long haul. Obviously, in this industry, who knows how long they'll end up lasting, but the idea is that they would be coming aboard to help develop a winner that might not emerge for several years down the road.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The last managerial search for Pedro Gafal, who won that job, it was a little bit more open, and like we knew when people were getting interviewed. The White Sox let that out, right? Like I remember.
Well, you don't know where it comes from exactly, but I don't think it's not like the White Sox were texting us and being like, okay, we interviewed so-and-so today. Go ahead and tweet that out. But the idea that those national reporter types who usually, put that out there, maybe got a little bit more from, and that could have to do with the specific candidates that were being interviewed as well. So, yes, there was maybe a little bit more known along the way, not too much, but maybe a little bit more known along the way, whereas this seems to just be, here's some guys they like, and at the end of the day, one of them is probably going to be the manager, but we haven't really heard much to point us in a specific direction quite yet.
To paraphrase the great Dwayne Carter, real G's move in silence like lasagna, and that's what Chris Getz is doing right now. Goodness gracious. I just can't wait until the White Sox make a decision on who's going to be their head boss next year. And I think Skip Schumacher, your point about him is valid because he's coming from a Marlins team where he had to do some rebuilding and did the rebuilding and became a 83-team win team that went to the playoffs in his first year, won the NL Manager of the Year, and probably has bona fides and has worked his way to a level where he doesn't have to do that anymore. He's of the status now, even though the Marlins didn't have a great year and he's leaving them, that he doesn't have to do like an entry-level job if this is what the White Sox are, because they are 121 losses team. This will take years on top years, and maybe Skip Schumacher doesn't want to do that. But hopefully Chris Getz does speak to him and gets a hard no before he moves on to other players or other coaches like Danny Lehman and Clayton McCullough. I would be excited for any of these players or any of these managers because it seems like they're a little bit different from regular White Sox business, which doesn't mean good or bad. It just means different. Regular White Sox business, as we've been talking about the last 19 years, for the most part has been poor. But as a person that has been very critical of Chris Getz, I would love for him to find his person that he has targeted from the beginning and zero in on that person. If it's Danny Lehman, if it's Skip Schumacher, or if it is Clayton McCullough, I would love for him to get his person to work in concert with him to build this team into the next team. Because, yes, 121 losses is a long way from the playoffs, but it's not 10 years from the playoffs. If they do this right, 5 years from now, I can see the White Sox being a team that is maybe not competitive with the World Series teams, but in the playoff mix if they do these things right. And if Chris Getz is the guy that Jerry Reinsdorf thinks that he truly is.
Well, and you ask about what did you miss last week, and I think kind of the thing that came out with some of the newer names that they are interested in or have been interested in is that this process looks a lot different than those past processes, right? I mean, this is something where Chris Getz is going and talking to folks who have job titles that don't even exist with the White Sox, that haven't existed, right? You got a guy like Danny Lehman who before he became the bench coach was the game planning and communications coach with the Dodgers. Not something the White Sox have. Donnie Ecker, who is over as the bench coach with the Texas Rangers, it was on that reported, one of the guys reported that the White Sox to be interested in as well. Prior to that, he was the offensive coordinator of the Texas Rangers, incorporating all of these scientific and research-based things that the White Sox just haven't had. Even a guy like Will Venable, right?
He's so great.
The associate manager. The White Sox haven't had an associate manager. So, I mean, even if you're just going off of the job title, let alone the minds that these guys have and the organizations that they work for, you're seeing new ways of doing things that the White Sox have not had before. And so even if none of those guys end up with the job and they go with somebody who's a little bit more of a traditional hire in a bench coach for a good team, or they bring in Skip Schumacher, let's say, right? The idea that they went through this interview process and said, tell me more about what an offensive coordinator does. Tell me more about what a game planning and communication coach does. Maybe that's something we want to do here at the White Sox as we move forward. Maybe that's something we want to incorporate into the front office or the minor league system. They're talking to a front office guy, A.J. Ellis, right? So I think there's so many characteristics that these guys have that this whole field has that Chris Getz can learn from, and the White Sox might be able to apply to their own organization.
It's about time. It is about time, because the way that Jerry would want to spend his money, not cheaply, I think he just does it frugally. He just wants to keep the money and not go break the bank for certain players. You should be winning on the margins. You should be winning on the things that, other teams don't do. The game planning, the base running, the things that, giving you a slight edge as far as winning games, the things that the Cleveland Guardians usually do against the White Sox, where they got really no great players except for Jose Ramirez, but they still win. They're still in the ALCS. They're still performing each and every year. And the White Sox, I felt coming into the show talking about the 20-year anniversary of the White Sox World Series team, kind of like, oh, man, it was so great to get back there. And I kind of felt bad about the 121 team, but, talking to you, hearing exactly what the White Sox are looking for, hopefully they're getting them, it's a little bit more hopeful that the White Sox future is brighter, because they're recognizing that we can't win by outspending these teams. We can't win by, developing talent necessarily right now. We eventually will with our new system, but we got to win on the margins. We got to win by having coaches that are smarter than the other coaches, having a leg up on the different team, having a game plan going into a game, and having smart catchers who know how to get the pitchers into the right position to have success. And that's a heartwarming thing for White Sox fans all over the world, because we know that they're just like, hey, throw the ball out there, let your talents take over. As you can see with other players like Tim Hill, who's a Yankee, much improved. Michael Kopech, much improved. They'll be playing a World Series game this year. And they were pretty much, one was DFA'd in Tim Hill. The other one was pretty much a throw-in in Michael Kopech. So it's good. It's a very heartwarming thing. It's a very hopeful thing for White Sox fans to know that they're looking at the things and seeing what we see as fans.
Well, listen, you talk about being critical of Chris Getz, and I don't know if a specific criticism of yours in particular is that he was kind of more of the same, which a lot of folks, kind of complained that he was. He had worked in that front office for, 6-7 years before getting promoted to general manager. But I think you can see a pattern of him trying to move this team away from the team that they had been. We saw in all of those national stories at the end of this 121 loss season, how this team was just stuck in its ways. Jerry Reinsdorf being stubborn about the way things should be run. The previous administration being stubborn about the way things should be run. Chris Getz's methods might not end up working, But boy, has he created a pattern of trying to do things differently, bringing in the people he did to be part of his front office, the hiring of Brian Bannister to take the pitching half of things at least in a very different direction that they had been going in prior, the investing in, whether it's financial resources or just time and focus and change on the behind the scenes departments, what he calls the underneath of the organization, right? The player development stuff, the international scouting, the idea of the stuff around the draft. We heard a lot of compliments about how much he was pouring into that. And now you're seeing it with some of the new types of people that he's looking at during this manager search. Like I said, it might not end up working, might not end up yielding the results that he wants it to yield. And so folks at the end of the day might just have the same complaint they do now, but boy, will they have gotten there in a different way, right? I think you see Chris Getz really trying to do what he said, which is remake this organization and really kind of change it from the ground up.
And as a process over results guy, I cannot be mad. The process seems like it's a better than what is in the past. That is Vinnie Duper. He is the CHGO White Sox beat reporter. He has a new article up on allchgo.com right damn now. So go and check that out. And if you are a diehard, you get access to that. If you want to become a diehard, it's only $48 now. T-shirt comes for free. You get free stickers. You get 20% off of future merch, 20% off of events. Like we're going to have a watch party for the Bears and Washington team this Sunday. 20% off of that. So become an all CHGO diehard damn now. My name is Herb Lawrence, Ecknerwall23. You can follow me on the Twitter sphere. And a great job by our producer, Katie Duffy. Did an awesome job today. We'll be back tomorrow. I think we'll be in the Sean Anderson formation. He'll be doing this, and I'll be in the middle part, and Vinny will be over there. So join us, 4 p.m. right here on the same channel, same bat time. Bye.